This week on The Kid in the Wheelchair, we're going to be discussing going to college with a disability. What goes into choosing a college? Why I chose the college I went to? What nerves did I have? What accommodations did I need? And all those great stuff. That is part one of going to college with a disability. Stick around. It's going to be a great one. You might know me as the kid in the wheelchair because I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy at 18 months old. I'm going to share with you my experience in the healthcare system, growing up different, and what it's like living life on wheels. Alongside some of the people that have had an impact on my world, as well as the world of disability, I'm having those difficult and sometimes ridiculous conversations that reframe the way we think about disability. All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Kid in the Wheelchair podcast with me, your host, John Gilroy. It's wonderful to have all of you here. Thank you so much for watching and listening, tuning in every week. Thank you. So, as you heard, this week we're going to be covering college with a disability, and this is part one. Part two is going to be the fun one where I get to talk to some of my friends from college who also were my helpers. So that's when y'all are going to be able to hear all the juicy stories and all the fun stuff that we did. It's going to be a good one. But this week, we also have a special star guest appearance from my mama. She wanted to talk to me and talk to y'all about what it was like for her dropping me off at college, with my father, what that experience was like. And I said, sure, I'll call you and we'll have that conversation. Let's do it. So to start out, I graduated high school in 2012. I'm old, man. It's 2024. 12 years ago. Holy crap. I am so old. But anyway, I graduated high school in 2012. I went to Arlington High School downstate in LaGrange, New York. My graduating class was, I think it was like 771. We had our graduation in an entire freaking minor league baseball stadium. Like, it was insane. There were so many people there. So I graduated in the top 10% out of 771 students. So 10% of 771, that's top 77. It's pretty darn good if you ask me, So that senior year, it was filled with a lot of kind of uncertainty for me and my family. I remember at that point in my life, I was scared. I was really scared because for my entire life up until that point, I had always had my parents and, my immediate family to depend on if I needed help, depend on to provide my stretching and things that I need just to be able to function on the daily basis. So this was so new, where it was like I'm going into a space where none of what I know, what I've become comfortable with is going to be there, It's not gonna be the same people. So this is going to be a whole new experience. And I was excited, but I was nervous as hell. So basically what happened was I went through the process of trying to find colleges that I felt were right for me, right? So of course, I applied to Dutchess Community College because that's the local community college for where I grew up. And, I figured I don't get enough scholarship money or I don't find a college that's accessible enough, that's a great place to start. get my 2-year degree, and then after that, transfer out and go, in those 2 years, I can try and find a place that's suitable for me, So that was option one. Another option, I applied to Marist College, which is another 4-year university that's close to me. And then in my research, I found, I can't remember if it was me that found it or if it was one of my parents. It might have been one of my parents. I can't remember. But we found a college in Pennsylvania. It was Edinburgh. And so Edinburgh, that was like way the hell on like the edge of Pennsylvania and I think Michigan. It was like way out there, right on the edge there. I was super excited because this school had wheelchair. Sorry, I forgot to silence my phone before I started recording this. But anyway, that I was super excited because that school had wheelchair sports, right? They had a wheelchair basketball team. I can't remember what other sports teams they had, but they had a wheelchair basketball team, and I was like super stoked because I wanted to do that. I wanted to be a part of that, right? Because I used to play ball back in the day. I had the wettest jumper in the game, baby. Well, I don't know if you want to call it a jumper. The wettest sitter in the game. I don't know what you want to call it, but I did. Side note, I did get an offer to play on a team that played at halftime at Madison Square Garden. It was a wheelchair basketball team that played at halftime at Madison Square Garden, but I had to turn it down because I would have had to go down to New York City every single day after school for practice, and that's like an hour and a half from where I grew up, so that was not an option. But your boy was a baller back in the day. My shot is gone. My shot is crap now. So it's okay. But anyway, back to what I was saying. I was super stoked about this college because they had wheelchair sports, right? So we're all excited. We set up the meeting to go visit this college, right? And we drive there. We get there. We meet with the disability office. The head of this disability office, I'm not going to say his name. I don't even remember his name. I just know it was a guy. Says, "Oh yeah, we'll show you everything." He takes us out to the residence halls first, right? He shows us this. I'm not kidding you. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It looked like a townhouse apartment, like a really nice apartment. And he was like, "Yeah, these are our brand new student housing areas, blah, 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 blah." And my family and I were like, "Wow, these are really nice. And there was a student there who was in a wheelchair. And so I was talking to him, and I was like, "Oh, you live here? Oh, that's great. So do you live here like all year round, because this was the summer?" And he goes, "No, unfortunately, during the school year, I have to go over there," right? And he points to this like tower building, and I'm like, So needless to say, almost the next words out of the head of the disability office's mouth was, but I'll show you where our housing for students who need accommodations during the school year is, right? So he takes us across to the tower that person was pointing at, right? We go inside this tower, and guys, I am not kidding you when I tell you this place looked like a Turkish prison. It looked atrocious. Like it literally looked like nobody had lived there for like over 100 years. Nobody cleaned it. It was disgusting. And it really made me realize, like, And I wish you could have seen how close these res halls were. Like, it was the nice res hall, and then right here was the Turkish prison, disability res hall, where everyone who needed any sort of help or, excuse me, ooh, it's my dinner, the spaghetti and meat sauce that I made, baby, coming up. Doesn't taste as good the second time though. So they were like this, right? So I'm looking at my mom like, why can't I live like in here? I have to live in this freaking prison because I have a disability. Like, that's wild. That's so wild, right? So we're thinking that's like the worst it can get, right? We're thinking that's terrible. So as we're walking around and we're talking to this guy, we're asking him about like staffing, how I can get, my assistants that I need on campus. And he told us that if I ever like dropped something or whatever and needed help picking it up and no one was around to help me, and I had to call someone to come pick it up, that they would charge me if that happened. They would charge me if I dropped something. That is so insane. It was like, what is this? Like, what kind of environment is this? This is not conducive to living. It's almost like I'm being penalized for coming here and having a disability when on their website, their college seemingly catered to people with disabilities, right? Well, guess that was a lie or incorrect or whatever. You know what I mean? So eventually I stumbled upon the University at Albany. UA, you know how that is. And my parents and I went on a visit to UAlbany, and we met with the head of the disability office at the time. Her name was Nancy Belowich-Negron, and she was the complete opposite of this other guy that I told you about. She was amazing. Amazing. The sweetest woman ever, answered all our questions. You could tell she really cared about students with disabilities. She really cared that anyone who came to UAlbany to learn was going to have the best experience. Anyone with a disability who came to UAlbany to learn was going to have the best experience, was going to feel welcomed, was going to feel comfortable, was going to feel like they always had someone to talk to, somewhere where they could go. I mean, Nancy's office was like a safe haven. It was like, oh, if I ever feel like I'm having trouble adjusting, I can go see Nancy and talk to Nancy. If I ever feel like I'm not getting accommodated properly, I can go see Nancy. It was amazing. So she answered all my mother's questions. She answered all my questions. And she told us exactly what the plan would be for me to be able to receive all the accommodations that I would need in terms of living spaces, any accommodations with classes, like separate location for exams or double time on exams, things like that. She told us all that. Here's how I would lay everything out. And she didn't lay it out like it was a burden. She laid it out like, we want you here. We want you here. So that pretty much sold me specifically on Albany. I mean, the only other thing I needed in order to go there was scholarship money because, we didn't have a lot of money to be able to pay for college. Like my parents told me, if you don't get scholarship money, you're going to go to Dutchess first, and then you're going to go wherever you want after that. But thankfully, and I'm so thankful to Albany that I was given enough scholarships to, I applied for and was chosen for enough scholarships that I was able to go there, able to go to Albany. So what exactly did they do to make my transition from home to Albany easiest? We'll get into that next. But first, I have a treat. Like I said, Mama Gilroy wanted to talk to all of you about her experience with me transitioning from living at home, to living at college. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to give Mama Gilroy a call. All right? Let's see.
Okay, hold on.
Can you turn the TV down? Anyway, this is so Mama Gilroy's here, and she wanted to share with y'all basically her experience dropping me off at school at Albany, and then like what it was like for her and me also after that experience, and so Mom, what I remember that day when you and I were driving there, I remember I was super nervous. Like, I was so nervous, right? And when I
think we were all nervous.
Yeah. I remember I saw the towers, one of the towers from Albany, like in the distance when we got close.
Yep.
And I was like, I can't do this. Oh shit, turn around.
I know.
I was freaking out. And you were like, you can do it.
Yep. Yep.
So
I'm like, we came all this way, you're not going back.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. It was your opportunity to finally offload me after 18 years. Well, 19 years.
Yeah. It had been a while, so. But yeah, you were scared, and we were scared, but we didn't want to let on.
Yeah. I mean, so when we finished moving me in and everything, did you stay with me? I can't remember.
I stayed in one of the motels across the street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Stayed there for a week and helped you interview some of the stretchers.
Oh yeah, that's right. You really helped me kind of onboard my first round of staff members.
Yeah, we did the whole schedule and stuff. Yeah,
I remember that. And then you went to some classes with me too, right?
Yeah, that must have been so embarrassing for you, but I tried to stay away from you so they wouldn't know I was with you.
So basically, guys, how this worked was my mother had to come in because she had to help take notes because I write slow, right? So I didn't have a note taker yet at that point. It was like the first week. So my mom had to come to be able to do that. So the way that my classes were at that point, we were in they're called lecture centers. So they're like huge halls, right? So Albany didn't really give you an option. It was either, if you were in a wheelchair, it was either you sit all the way in the back or you sit literally up on the stage with the professor. So I remember, or in the front of the class. So like my mom said, she tried to give that distance because I think you sat like all the way in the back. I don't even know how you saw what the professors were doing.
Well, yeah, I was kind of like in the middle. Yeah, closer to the back.
Yeah.
But I could hear them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's really all I need to take the notes.
So you can say that you took a day of classes a week of classes at Albany or whatever. I wonder if those credits will transfer.
On my resume.
Yeah, there you go. You're retiring soon, so maybe your next job you can tell them. Come to think of it, I did take a couple weeks of classes at Albany.
I did a week at Albany.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But
that's count for something,
right? So what were your before I called you? I was kind of explaining to them, to the listeners and the watchers out there, what the process was for us choosing UAlbany. I told them about our trip to Edinburgh College out there. I told them when we went and we saw Nancy. So, how was that meeting for you when we met with Nancy? How was that meeting for you? How did that make you feel when we left that meeting?
Well, I found her to be very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she eased a lot of my anxieties because she told us things we never even knew. If you didn't have your chair, your electric chair, that somebody may have been able to come and take you to classes. That was my big worry, our big worry. The chair thing.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like, because we've had these conversations privately, you and I. We've talked about how parents in general worry about their children when they transition from home to college. But I think for you and Dad specifically, this was something, it was such a huge thing because it was for years up until that point. It was just you guys that I had to depend on for everything that I needed. You guys were my caretakers. So essentially it was like the changing of the guard where you were like, all right, I have to pass it off to somebody else now. And I can only imagine how that must have felt as a parent.
It was pretty hard. It was scary and terrifying. Those are kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
But we were very proud at the same time because, you were willing to give it a try, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And then look what happened. You were really successful there. So.
Yeah, I freaking did it.
You what do you call it? Crammed it. No.
Crammed it. That's new, everybody. I crammed it. Well, actually, Mom, when you say I crammed it, you're not wrong because I did cram for a lot of exams. So I'll give you that I did cram that. You're probably thinking of slam dunk. I slam dunked it.
Yeah.
I did good. Yeah, see, everybody see mother son in brain connection there. I knew what she was trying to say.
Cram rhymes with
I
slam.
crammed it home, everybody. I crammed it home. You know what also that means? You know what that means too is you can take that degree and cram it through the net because I did it.
There you go.
Because I did it. All right. But so one last thing, Mom. I do want to say, because I remember after you dropped me off, I was in shambles for a few minutes, like 10, 15 minutes. I'm sitting in my dorm room, just crying.
And really? Only 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah, right?
I had to drive home. Yeah, I had to drive home crying. I cried when Dean went to college. I'd cry when you went to college. I would cry if, Maisie went to college.
Maisie, everyone listening or watching, Maisie is our cat. Okay?
Maisie's our big fat kitty.
That's one of my parents' cats.
And
Smokey. I would like to now formally acknowledge that since both my brother and I are missing from the house, my mother has become a cat lady, and my father as well. He'll reluctantly disagree. He'll disagree with that and say that he's not a cat guy. But I think they're together. They're definitely cat parents now. So yeah.
He's totally a cat guy.
Exactly. But I did just want to say, it was interesting for me because I cried for a while, right? And then I looked around and I'm like, why the fuck am I crying? Like, I'm on my own. I have no one to like answer to. You know what I mean? It's all me now. You know what I mean? And I was like, I can do whatever I want. Sweet. So that was kind of, that was cool, man. That was awesome. That was really cool. So it kind of speaks to the how real that is, because I remember I'll let you go after this, because I remember when we first brought up going to college with one of my Medicaid case managers at the time, she said she had never had a client who went to college, right? So she didn't really know what to do, how that was, you know what I mean? So I was really
that's crazy, because some people underestimate what you can do if you just, you got to look into it, you got to prepare, you got to do all your homework, but you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's out there, yeah.
Exactly, and I think that's why I wanted to bring that up, because I think you guys played a big role in that too, in kind of helping me to research and find those places that would work for me. You know what I mean? And always kind of doing that. So I did want to say thank you for that. And I'm going to let you go, because I know you probably have stuff to do other than talk to me on the phone. You got to get back to whatever show you were watching before I called you. So rudely interrupted you. But ladies and gentlemen, and gentlemen, that is one half of the greatest parenting duo of all time, Melissa Gilroy. Thank you, Mama.
Love you, John.
I'll talk to you soon. Love you too.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So that was my mama. What a treat, right? What a lady. What a woman. She's amazing. So that's kind of a glimpse into what that was like. So now I want to dive into, I'm at UAlbany, right? I'm there. Now, what did the college do? What did they do to make the college experience and being in college as accessible as possible for me? So to start, we had to have meetings with Res Life, and kind of Res Life is short for residential life, and kind of lay out what my basic needs were to be able to live on my own, right? So I would need extra room to be able to fit all my equipment. I would need bars in certain places in the bathroom, automatic door openers, things like that, So they ended up putting me in on State Quad in Tappan Hall, room 103. So if there's anybody watching this that is currently sitting in Tappan Hall, room 103, I think it was 103-1, because that was a suite. There was 2 rooms inside of it. It was 103-1. So if there's anybody sitting in 103-1, I was there, baby. That was my room. And then when I get rich, when I get rich, what I want to do is start a scholarship fund so that every person that's in TAPN 103.1 and 103 in general, they don't know it, but they'll get the TAPN 103 scholarship. It's going to happen. Putting it out into the universe, it's going to happen. But anyway, what UAlbany did was essentially they put all the bars up that I would need, right? So I used to joke with my freshman year suite mates that I had because like for the first few weeks of school that we were all there, it was almost like they were building a jungle gym in our bathroom, because every day they'd be coming back and they'd be adding, one more bar here, one more bar there. And it was so funny because, I could tell that it might have been the first time my suite mates had been, lived with somebody with a physical disability. So it seemed anyway, by their body language, that it was a bit daunting to just see all these bars and this equipment coming in. The one thing that was really cool was the automatic door openers. They were like these pads on the floor, right? So I could roll over them with my chair or my walker, or, one of my friends could step on them, whatever, and the door would open up. And that was so cool. That was so much fun. That was just a cool piece of like equipment. That was really cool. And then also to accommodate for the space needs because of my equipment, they gave me a double room to myself. So it was basically like you walk in, there was a common area, right? A common area. The bathroom's here, and then it was my room, and then my suite mate's room. So I had a double room to myself, man. I had the freaking presidential suite of college dorm rooms. It was awesome. So I lived there for all 4 years. So unfortunately, I had to live with freshmen all 4 years because State Quad was a freshman quad. But I really enjoyed the space because it was made for me. It was made for me, and I really learned how to become independent in that space and became confident in my independence in that space. So I'm really thankful for that experience. And that room is also where I have some great memories with friends doing movie nights and things like that, which we're going to get into some of that in episode 2, where y'all are going to get to meet 2 of my best friends, my brothers. I consider them like family. Nelson and Danny. We're going to share a lot of those stories. But some other things that I did want to get into were what other things that UAlbany had to do for me. So the other things, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, is class accommodations, right? So I had to, in high school, I had what's called an IEP, an individualized education program, right? So individuals with IEPs, typically they have certain accommodations that they need to be able to help them thrive to their fullest potential in a scholastic environment, right? So individuals with IEPs can range from people like myself who are on a regular ed path, who were in AP classes and taking college courses in high school and taking high school courses in middle school, so always kind of on that advanced path. And then it can also range, people who are on special ed courses will also sometimes need IEPs. There's also things called 504s, which is not as intensive as an IEP, but it does also provide students with certain accommodations that they may need to function in a scholastic environment, right? So it's not necessarily as intensive as an IEP, but it's some sort of accommodation. But anyway, when you go to college, those IEPs don't transfer with you. You know what I mean? Because that's a K through 12 type thing. So I was like, oh shit, what are we going to do? Because like in my IEP all through school, it said I get a note taker, which was Mrs. Berry, who you guys are going to meet soon, hopefully in one of these episodes. And then I got separate location for exams and also double time on exams because my writing speed, because of my muscle movement, was slower. You know what I mean? So I got double time on exams as well. So, excuse me. So that we were looking to carry that over somehow, some way into college, right? So thankfully, we were able to do that. We basically had to submit my IEP, submit all my doctor's forms that proves I have, a disability, all that stuff. And then you got to get it signed off on by the Office of Disabilities. And then I had to recruit my own note takers. So that's what I was saying when we spoke with my mom, where she, for the first few weeks, she was in there, man. She was in there taking notes for me in Professor Miroff's Politics 101 class. That was the guy that would cough all the time. We'd start a tally and count how many times he coughed, but that's beside the point. But anyway, so those are some of the accommodations, right? Now, classes themselves, what was that like? So you heard me reference the big LCs, right? The big lecture centers, and how they only gave you like two options if you were in a wheelchair. It was either you sit literally on the stage with the professor in front of hundreds and hundreds of people, or you sit all the way the fuck in the back of the LC where you can't hear anything, you can't see anything, and you're so removed from what's actually going on that you don't even really feel like you're in class. You don't feel like you're part of the class, right? So I was like, you know what? Screw that. I'm not sitting all the way in the back. I got to find a way to sit in the front. And so that's when Nancy told me the only option is to go down into the sub-basements, where that's where you get to the front entrances of the LC that will bring you out onto that stage, that second option that I was telling you about, that'll bring you out onto the stage. So guys, I shit you not, this was so insane. It was I would have to go down like 3 elevators down into what I lovably call Murder Alley, because when you get down into the sub-basement, there is no cell service. There is nothing down there. So God forbid anything happened, your boy is done for. Done for. So, I would have to go through this like arduous process just to get to class, right? So I would have to leave my dorm room. Why was I blanking on the words dorm room? What the hell? So I would have to leave my dorm room probably about a half hour to 45 minutes before my class in the lecture centers actually started, because I would have to go through a proverbial maze just to make it down to class in time. I remember one day, I don't remember why exactly they came, but I think they were bringing like moving something, a new piece of equipment that I needed or something into my apartment, right? So it was my mom, my dad, and my brother, and they wanted to see how I got to class, right? So I'm like, all right, buckle up. Hope you got your good shoes on, because it's a lot of walking. And lucky me, I don't have to walk. But, so we're going, and we go down the first elevator. And then we walk some more. We go down the second elevator. We walk some more. We go down the third elevator. And then that's when we're down into like, the chipped paint murder alley down there with the signs that say hazard. Like, and it makes you really question, like, why, you know? But I remember my family saying to me, wow, you have to do this just to get to class? Like, that's a lot. And I was like, yeah, it's a lot. Because another thing is, Albany, they had tunnels in the winter, right, that people could use during the winter to get from building to building. But I couldn't use those because first of all, the doors, I couldn't open the doors myself. You know, they were so freaking heavy. And then my chair was too wide to fit through some of them. And then also, to get to the front of the LCs, you can't do that through the tunnels. So I was stuck in the winters, freaking trudging. Thank God my chair was four-wheel drive, but trudging through the snow just to get to class, So that was definitely a point of contention with me and discussing over the years with some university execs about I would love to see that change, because I would love to see some chairs be taken out like in the middle and maybe a ramp down the side of the lecture halls so that I could sit amongst people, because there were times where it felt very much like it was the class and then it was me. And it was kind of like it felt like I was on display for everyone, up on that stage. I felt like kind of like just on display, like I couldn't just have class. Like people were watching me and the professor. I remember one time in the LC, in one of the large LC classes, I was up on the stage and there had to be probably like 350 people in this class. I'm standing up in my chair because it stands up, and the professor's teaching, and it's the professor that coughed all the time. He was a good professor, don't get me wrong, but I was so tired and I was so bored. I fell asleep in my chair, and one of my friends was in the front row, and they were like, "Psst, John, wake up. And I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, so, I guarantee someone out there probably has that on their, like, Snap story or somewhere in their camera roll on their phone. They have a picture of me head down on my tray, standing up, fully knocked out, arm hanging off the side. I would pay to see that, honestly. So that's that. And then I do want to close it out with this to lead into part 2. Another accommodation that the university helped me with was getting staff. And you heard my mom reference it, where she helped me interview some of my original staff members for my first year in college. So they helped me kind of learn how to do. The first year, my staff was paid through the disability office through a voucher. The second year, it changed into a program called Consumer Directed Personal Assistance Program, and a program which I still use to this day, but I'll go into that in a later episode. But in the next episode, you're going to actually meet, in part 2 of this, 2 of my friends who were staff for me under that program, under that Consumer-Directed Personal Assistance Program in my second year. You're going to meet some of them. So, folks, I hope that this episode gave you a little sense of what it was like to go to college with a disability. Oh, and one last thing. I know I was about to wrap, but I did want to mention this because I almost forgot. But I did want to mention, prior to going to college, there was a neurologist that I met with, right? I won't mention his name. It was himself, myself, and my mother in this office. And we met with the neurologist because, as someone with CP, before I'm going to college, it was just, I have to get a checkup and make sure everything is fine. So we're in the office, and the doctor looks at my file. Doesn't even look at me. Does not even look at me. Looks at my mother and says, "College, huh? You might want to just take him out and get your money back because it's going to be too hard for him." Now, folks, keep in mind what I told you at the beginning of this podcast. I had just graduated in the top 10% of my class out of 771 kids. Not too shabby, huh? And here was this man, highly educated, supposedly, telling my mother that because of my disability, she would be better off taking me out of college because it was going to be too hard for me. And he didn't even have the balls to look at me when he was saying this. So, as you can imagine, I'm biting my tongue. I'm trying so hard. I want so badly to just run this guy over. And I remember in the moment, my mom just said, let's get out of here. And we left. I was pissed. Fast forward to the end of college. End of 4 years, folks. I graduated magna cum laude in the top 15% out of approximately 2,000 people. So to that doctor, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, who's dumb now? Who's dumb now? That's what I thought. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This was great. Remember, it's better to ask questions than to make assumptions, because the more you know, the more you grow. I'll see you next week. Love y'all.